You eat a tiny cube of cheese on a toothpick, feel mildly guilty, and buy a $10 block of cheddar. You see a flashing red timer on a website and instantly click buy. You chuckle at a poorly written joke on television simply because a chorus of disembodied voices laughed first. We prefer to view ourselves as highly rational creatures, carefully weighing the variables of every choice. In reality, we make rapid, highly irrational decisions on a daily basis. The human brain has to process an overwhelming avalanche of data every second. To survive without burning out, it operates as a biological shortcut machine. It relies on ingrained mental triggers to make snap judgments so we navigate the world efficiently. The problem is that these biological shortcuts are highly predictable. Salespeople, marketers, and negotiators spend years studying these exact psychological pathways to intentionally bypass our active critical thinking. If you do not recognize how these specific triggers operate, your choices do not actually belong to you. You are flying on autopilot while someone else steers. The first trigger exploits our internal sense of duty. It is the principle of reciprocity, the deeply wired human urge to return a favor when someone provides us with something. Persuaders exploit this instinct by offering an uninvited, free gift. You accept a sample at the grocery store, and the resulting psychological debt makes you highly likely to clear the ledger with a massive financial purchase. This internal pressure also powers a second weapon: commitment and consistency. The manipulation often starts with the foot in the door technique, where you are asked to agree to a minor, seemingly harmless request. Once you agree to that minor request, the fear of appearing inconsistent to yourself and others kicks in. When a massive, irrational request eventually follows, you agree just to stay consistent with your new identity. As Leonardo da Vinci observed centuries ago, it is easier to resist at the beginning than at the end. Internal pressures are highly effective because they use your own desire to be a reliable, good person to dismantle your rational logic. The next layer of influence targets our social bonds. Through the principle of liking, we automatically drop our guard around people who mirror our behaviors or offer us compliments. The classic Tupperware party thrives entirely on this mechanic. The financial transaction is cleverly camouflaged as a personal favor to a friend, replacing the cold skepticism of a retail store with the warmth of a living room. This scales up to the seventh principle of influence: unity. This escalates beyond mere similarity. It taps into our deepest levels of shared tribal identity, like our families, ethnicities, or teams. Unity creates intense, almost blind loyalty. It prompts people to vigorously defend a terrible product or support a highly destructive policy simply because their specific in-group proposed it. Relational pressures succeed by making you feel like part of a collective. They disguise a carefully structured manipulation as a required act of loyalty. When we lack information on how to act, we look to the crowd. This is social proof, the biological instinct to copy the herd whenever we experience uncertainty. Broadcasters simulate this consensus by injecting artificial social proof, canned laughter, over television dialogue. Even painfully bad material feels acceptable to us, simply because we perceive that others are validating it. Our reliance on society extends up the hierarchy through authority. From birth, we are trained to implicitly trust and obey perceived experts. The specific vulnerability here is that we rarely verify actual expertise. We routinely bypass critical thought in response to simple visual symbols: a title on a door, a set of credentials, or a crisp white uniform. Societal pressures exploit our inherent insecurity. They force us to trade the hard work of independent judgment for the perceived safety of following the herd or obeying a uniform. The writer G.K. Chesterton pointed out that the way to love anything is to realize that it might be lost. This introduces scarcity. Items become vastly more desirable the exact moment we realize they might disappear. This animated diagram illustrates psychological reactance. When limits threaten our freedom to choose, baseline desire suddenly spikes, creating immediate biological panic. Modern platforms rely on this, deploying artificial countdown timers and low stock warnings to intentionally trigger that vertical panic. Under the intense pressure of scarcity, the sudden urge to buy is rarely about enjoying the item itself. The urge is driven by the primal satisfaction of beating out your rivals. Scarcity effectively short-circuits logic. It takes a routine consumer choice and elevates it into a high-stakes, evolutionary competition for survival. These 7 weapons constantly bypass your active thinking, but they are not unbeatable. You can actively defend against them. The primary countermeasure requires introducing forced friction. You have to physically disrupt the automatic shortcut before it completes its circuit. The most effective friction is the pause. Stepping out of a showroom or closing a laptop physically breaks the psychological momentum the persuader relies on to close the deal. Inside that pause, you must ask yourself one diagnostic question. Am I reacting to the thing itself or the trigger around it? Honest communicators can use these psychological tools ethically to build genuine trust. But recognizing them as weapons is the only reliable way to ensure that your decisions truly belong to you.